That's not.
I've got 5:02 p.m.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Give me the word.
And they're going to start right now.
Boy, I'm looking forward to this audit report.
I told him it's my favorite day of the year.
You probably don't want to.
Please tell me it's going to be televised so everybody else can enjoy it too, right? Huh? This is your second one?
Good to go? Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We're good. Commissioner Stewart, will you lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please?
Please stand and join us. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this opportunity to come and serve the citizens of our county. Lord, I just ask for that you grant us wisdom here tonight for all of us that are serving. Lord, we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, you have several opportunities. We have a citizens to be heard at the beginning, one at the end. You can speak at either of those, and also on each individual agenda item. Please fill out a speaker card with Miss Patty, and when you come up, give us your name and address so the folks at home can hear it as well. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
We have one item on this evening under awards and presentations regarding the updated draft to the BMAP.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda is modified.
Second. A motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. I would also, I think we have a fairly short agenda tonight. I don't think we're going to be here long, but you never know how that goes. If we happen to go to 6 p.m., I'm going to pass the gavel, and I have to leave. My daughter's being inducted into the National Honor Society, and I think I need to be there.
6:30.
Yeah, it starts at 6:30. They say one monkey doesn't stop the show, and I know you guys will be in good hands, but I think we'll probably be done.
As long as you got plenty of time for the audit report, because everybody's here.
I'll be staying up reading this tonight when I get home anyway.
Sure, we get that in there.
All righty. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I already did.
Oh, yeah, we voted on that. Citizens to be heard. Tony Holly.
That is for the first planning and zoning items tonight.
I'm sorry. Yep, it is item number 17. No citizens to be heard? Okay.
Here we go.
Awards and presentation. We'll hear from Mr. Richard Powell with Powell and Jones.
3 minutes.
The buzzer set?
Give me 3 minutes.
I'm going to do it.
It says 10 minutes on the agenda.
I got 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. It's a pleasure delivering the annual audit of Wakulla County. We performed the field work earlier on site, and then the financial report was prepared by your finance office, Greg and his staff. We've reviewed it, so this is a formal presentation, reminding everyone that an audit of a county is a separate audit of the board and each constitutional officer, and then a compilation of all of the reports in the overall financial report, which is what I will review. On page 2 and 3 is the audit opinion. It states it's a complete audit of the county and components I mentioned, conducted in accordance with applicable auditing standards, and in this year those included the financial auditing standards, the government auditing standards, the federal single audit standards, and the state single audit standards. So there were 4 levels of required audit procedures. In an audit, what you seek is a clean, unmodified opinion that states that the financial statements are an accurate reflection of how the county stood at the end of the year, what transpired financially during the year. You have that highest level of assurance, which is a good reflection on the quality of the financial records and practices of each constitutional officer and the board, which is very commendable. The next section, beginning on page 4, is management's discussion and analysis, some required overview information, but due to the fact it is derived from the financial statements, I'll ask that you read that on your own, and I'll go directly to the pertinent financial statements, the first one being on page 24. The county operates under fund accounting, under governmental accounting principles. There's two types of funds that are covered. You have governmental funds and you have enterprise funds. The majority of the county are the governmental funds, and this is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. Of the major governmental funds are the general fund, the sheriff's office fund, the ship fund, capital projects, and the 1-cent sales tax fund. And then the last column combines a number of the smaller governmental funds, and there's schedules in the back if you wish to look that up. The total assets of these funds were $16,875,189. Total liabilities, $4,216,857. Under fund accounting, fund balances are cash reserves. The total fund balances, i.e. cash reserves, were $12,658,332. You can see that you have various categories of fund balances that show restrictions. But if you look at the assigned and unassigned categories, those are basically reserves that are under direct control of the board. And in the general fund, it computes to about 2 months of general fund expenditures. But if you look at the total, it is about $4.7 million, and it equates to about 6 months of the overall governmental fund expenditures. You have a fund balance policy, and those balances are maintained and computed and reviewed regularly. On page 25 is the revenue and expenditure statement for these same funds. The total revenues were $33,336,603. Total expenditures, $34,530,058. After you have transfers in and out, but the bottom line for the governmental funds in this year was positive $332, and so in this year, these funds were stronger by $341,000 over what they were a year ago. So these funds operated successfully during the year. The next, the category I mentioned were your enterprise funds, and on page 27 and 28 are the two comparable statements. Your enterprise funds are your sewer fund and your solid waste fund. The intent of an enterprise fund is to operate off user charges, so you're not having to defray these expenses with any of your general revenues. The total assets of these funds were $29,300,834. The substantial assets were the capital assets, mainly in the sewer fund, which were $25,586,165. The total liabilities were $10,772,431. And the net position, this is the equity of these funds, were $18,528,403. If you look at the unrestricted line of equity, which totals $2,192,139, that's approximately equivalent to the unassigned and assigned fund balances of the governmental funds. And here, those two numbers equate to almost a year's worth of expenses in the sewer fund, and about 3 months of expenses in the solid waste fund. So again, those reserves are adequate. The next statement is your revenue and expense statement of these funds. These funds operate under business accounting principles, so just like a business, basically. And in this year, your user charges were $4,899,084. The expenses were $3,998,375, and then you had transfers in and out, and you had some grant revenue, which is shown as with revenue. But the key number to me is that operating profit of $900,709 because that shows that you fully covered your cash expenses and you covered depreciation in this year and still added to your the unrestricted net position of these funds. So it's very good when you're able to actually cover depreciation as well as your cash expenses. Okay, so after that are some notes and disclosures. I'll go to what I consider the important notes, and the first one being there is a table on page 51 that shows the status of your capital assets. Here it shows, and there again, separated into two categories, governmental and enterprise. The governmental assets, the total cost base, $103,965,560. Accumulated depreciation, $42,459,228. The net assets, $61,506,332. What does that tell you? These assets are about 41% depreciated, used up, which places you, I'd say, kind of at average to slightly older than the counties I'm aware of in your size. The enterprise assets, cost base $35,995,133, accumulated depreciation $10,408,969. These assets are about 29% used up, so I would say these are newer than comparable counties. So probably overall you're just slightly better than, and I'm not saying that you're better than average, but your assets are about slightly better than average age.
Everybody in Wakulla County is better than average.
That's right. I didn't want to misspeak. Okay, the next table on page 61 shows the long-term liabilities of the county. And again, governmental and business type. And the key numbers, you know, the total governmental liabilities are $25,507,970, but of that $25 million, $22 million is comprised of the calculated county liability of the FRS total liability. So your share of the $40 billion that FRS has is $22 million. And we hope that these members, that you and everyone isn't ever asked to pay for that directly. But all that actually means is that your retirement rates will probably continue to increase. But of the actual debt that is comprised of capital leases and loans, the governmental funds owed $1,265,969, which was a decrease from the beginning of the year. In the enterprise funds, the total liabilities were $9,347,657, which was an increase, and again, that's because you're undergoing a sewer project that is being financed with, and it's actually loans from the government. Okay, so I would say financially, the county had a successful year. You were stronger at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year, and you lived within your budget plan for the year. The next section is the single audit and compliance section on page 120 is our report regarding audit procedures required by government auditing standards. These procedures go beyond financial issues and include internal control over financial reporting, compliance with various laws, regulations, policies of the board. In this report, there are no findings or question costs. Page 122 is a report regarding the procedures required by federal single audit requirements. These procedures go beyond governmental audit procedures and include compliance procedures regarding the major federal programs. In this report, there are no findings or question costs. Page 124, 125 is the equivalent report regarding state single audit requirements. Again, extended compliance procedures regarding the major state programs. In this report, there are no findings or question costs. On page 126 on is a schedule of the grant activity for the year. The various federal and state agencies utilize this report to close out and reconcile your grants. And this year, the federal grant expenditures were $1,802,939. The total state grants were $6,467,504. So I always like to bring out that your staff and the finance office has to keep detailed records on all of these 4 pages of grants. But the net result is that you had $8.3 million of improvements to the county that weren't funded directly by your taxpayers. I won't say weren't funded by taxpayers, but were not directly funded. On page 135 and through 137 is the management letter required by rules of the Auditor General. In here, we include any findings or recommendations that are not necessarily material to the financial statements, and then there's specific areas that we're required to report on. Without saying that I think for the second year in a row, both the board and each constitutional officer had no findings in the current year, no findings in the prior year. So, you know, you can't get a better report than that. So we hope we all keep it up. On page 138, we're required to audit the county's investment of public funds. We did that and had no findings, reportable findings. So,
Excellent presentation.
thank you, then I'll stop.
I have a question, and this is a very simple question. Where do you get your information from? Where do you get your information? You're not sitting in our offices.
Well, we actually perform field work in your offices. We do a lot of electronic financial statement communication with the finance office.
So you have ability to look at our books.
It isn't.
Or do you take our word for it? That's sort of like a question I have.
Okay.
Enron, Arthur Anderson took the word of Enron, and that turned out to be totally wrong and destroyed Arthur Anderson. So it's just a simple question.
The source documents come from your files. The financial reports that we request and are run directly off your system and not massaged in any way. So, it's, you know, it's generated by your system, and we do some tests of controls and tests of integrity of the system, but it's like standing in front of them, would you run me a report, and they hand it to you. So it's not massaged or say, give it to me tomorrow. And majority of our field work is performed on site in Wakulla County.
And we welcome the test. We want to test our systems to make sure we've done, and we improve every year from those tests. So we actually use it as a tool.
But basically speaking, everything that he does is based on what we give him, more or less.
Well, he goes and gets it. He can get, all the information is available to him.
Yeah.
He requests what he wants, when he wants it, and how he wants it.
Excellent.
And then he tests that.
This is my 8th year of one of these, and they get better every year.
Oh, wow. It's a high standard
No
to
problem.
try to maintain, but I work at it.
Now, Greg, we're not going to come back and get any more money on the back end.
No, I know that. I know that. I know how Wakulla County.
There's no more back end. Okay, all right, good. Hear that, Nanette? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we'll hear a presentation on the BMAP. Melissa?
You got a hard act to follow.
I do. I've got a pretty map. Hopefully that'll help me out.
Waking everybody back up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Last Friday, DEP released their draft update to the Basin Management Action Plan, or the BMAP. And this is something that we've given you some updates on recently through some just agenda items and a presentation. And we were anticipating that some revisions to septic tank regulations might come out of this BMAP update. And that has been the result that we've seen. When this draft update came out last Friday, the county administrator actually forwarded that to you, so you may have already taken a look at this. But just for anybody who had not had a chance to review it yet, just wanted to give you a high-level review of what's being proposed by DEP. The first regulation that I want to mention pertains to new septic tank installations. And once this BMAP is adopted, which we anticipate would happen in the summer of this year, lots less than 1 acre in size within the priority focus areas are going to be required to install some type of advanced septic tank system or be connected to central sewer. There is an exemption to that if they would have the ability to connect to a central sewer connection within 5 years, then they could put in a standard septic system until that time. And the map that I handed out to you shows those priority focus areas where all of these regulations are geared towards, and it's the areas encompassed within the orange line.
Okay, that was a question I had. It's within the orange, not the black dots.
That's
right.
correct. Yes, that black outline is going to be the entire BMAP area. The orange areas are the priority focus areas. And so generally, that's encompassing the majority of Crawfordville. You've got Medart within that area. The central portion of the county, essentially all the way from Spring Hill Road on the north side over to east of Woodville Highway, are all encompassed within this area.
It looks to me like the northern PFA basically mirrors our Springs Protection Zone, which we already have septic tank restrictions on. They're just adding the southern part,
They did add
Spring
in
Creek
that.
part, you know.
Okay, when you dial down on that orange, there's got to be a more specific line. Where do we see that more specific line?
It actually jogs back and forth. It does not follow roadways all the time. Sometimes it just
Where do I find that specific jog?
DEP has actually made the GIS files available through their website, so that's something that we'll be pulling into our system, and that way if there's specific properties, then you can look, actually you can look up a specific property, as I understand it, on DEP's website now. You can punch in an address and see if it's within the areas.
Okay.
And they've also instituted or proposing to institute regulations for existing septic tanks as well. They are proposing that no later than 5 years after this revision is adopted, that any modification or repair permit to an existing septic tank would be required to convert the system so that it is enhanced for nitrogen reduction.
Very expensive.
Yes, unless a central sewer connection would be available based on a central sewer project that has been committed to by the county in the BMAP's list of projects. And one of the things that DEP is recommending is that the counties come up with a wastewater plan showing where they plan to put in those central sewer lines over the next 20 years.
Which we have that for the next 5 to 7 years. we'll have to expand that to 20 years.
That 5-year program, Joe Jones is a poor person. They've got to redo the septic. They can't do it. They have no money. They can't get credit. They can't get a second.
Well, one of the clarifications there we need to make with DEP and in our letter going back to them will be, they need to clarify that says all homes or all parcels that have a repair, they'll have to do that. But then in the new section, it says 1 acre and less. So we need to clarify, is it all? Or is it just the folks in the 1 acre or less that have to do that?
That little tidbit right there is probably the biggest hardship in there is these repairs and modifications.
Yeah.
We got rid of it in our comp plan, you know.
Right.
We used to have that too, but it's just not realistic. I mean, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. What are you
Well,
gonna tell me?
the other thing is that it's pretty much established with a certain part of our community that they basically have not a lot of money. And as soon as they see a $30 bill on something they can unplug, they unplug it. Everybody that I know, almost to the person who has that performance base, has it unplugged. So they're just blindly overlooking that fact. They're saying, well, we'll just pass it anyway.
And if I'm reading the draft BMAP language correctly, that 5-year rule for the existing septic tanks would apply to all lots within the priority focus areas.
That's what we need to clarify.
So that's what it looks like the intent
Yeah.
is, because there's even a statement in there. It reads, all on-site treatment disposal systems subject to the policy must include enhanced treatment of nitrogen no later than 20 years after the BMAP adoption. And that is their planning term for this document, is a 20-year time.
Every
frame.
septic tank.
Every septic tank.
Whether it's working or not.
These, just to add one brief tidbit in there, these two primary focus areas will roughly affect about 14,000 parcels in Wakulla County alone.
Is there a performance-based the only way to meet the standard, or can an aerobic system do it?
I believe an aerobic system can do it. What DEP has been telling us is any system approved by the Department of Health. So they're deferring to them, trying to leave the language general, because over the next 20 years, there may be scientific advances that...
Well, that's a big
prove
deal,
something.
because the only thing approved to remove it to 10 milligrams per liter of nitrogen are the performance-based. But if it's an aerobic system that can meet whatever standard they're trying to get, that's a lot cheaper.
Right.
You don't need an engineer involved. I know I'm an engineer. But you don't need an engineer. It's a lot cheaper to build. They use them on the coastal areas all the time.
Well, one of the things
I just don't know what standard they're trying to hit, because they never said, you know, you said some sort of nitrogen removal in it. It didn't say treat it to 10 milligrams per liter or 5 or
Right.
20 or whatever. It didn't say anything about it. It just says you can't use a regular septic tank. I mean, I might be able to invent something I can go retrofit in an existing tank that splashes it around a little bit, and maybe that meets the standard.
one of the things that they're doing, DEP is through the has issued through the Water Management District a grant, and they tried to get us to do it, but we passed our funding on to Leon County due to the inherent risk that it had to the county. Was that they were wanting to have a system to where the counties, and they'll fund it, but use different experimental systems to try to get what nitrogen removal and see what it is, and then monitor it on the long term. And they're doing that in Leon. They will be doing that in Leon County, but you got to go out and find it. So I would imagine, like you said, this will be evolving over time. The problem is there right now, there's not, other than the one system, there's not anything out there, but there's also a big septic tank lobby that has lobbied the BMAP pretty heavy on this, and hence there's some interesting things going on there.
There's several
as well.
systems
So,
that'll do it, but they're all very expensive.
very expensive, and that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to find that lower price system, and it's eluding everyone right now.
Because, you know, regular septic tanks is anaerobic, so when you
Right.
start adding air to it, it becomes aerobic, but to get nitrogen removal, you got to have recirculation.
You got to have
You gotta have
electricity.
You got to have anaerobic and
That's
aerobic.
right. That's right.
When I came on in 2010, everybody was talking about nitrogen. Just it was a horrible thing, and it was destroying the world. It turned out that Wakulla County was only putting 6% of nitrogen in the system. So I don't want to, I hate to even think about doing performance-based and 5-year putting new stuff in when most likely 90% of those are not polluting anyway. And if, you know, having the DEP say they're your friend is not exactly one of the better things.
Randy, you know what, you know what the rough cost is, estimate for, if I had to do mine, for instance, you know what?
If you had to retrofit it,
Yes.
With performance-based.
15,000?
no, not that much. You have to abandon your old, probably 10, because you could probably reuse your drain field.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm going to put it in layman's terms for the public. I think, just so they understand what this could, I mean, this is a real big deal for all of us. Almost everybody in the county is going to be impacted for this.
You cannot
It's going to cost each individual landowner who has a home now with an operating septic tank, it's going to cost you $8,000 or $10,000 to upgrade to this DEP standard.
Well, you can't use the old tank. You got
Right.
to dig the old tank out of
Exactly.
the ground, and if you, imagine living in Wakulla Gardens, you got houses around, you got a septic tank in your backyard, how are they going to get,
I can't
how they going to get
imagine.
it out of there?
It's
You have to
gonna-
have a crane to get it out, so you may end up $12,000, $15,000
Exactly.
in expense. I just don't think the DEP is thinking about that
They're
kind of
not.
stuff.
I think they think about it. I don't think they really care.
Well, and did you say that they're basically saying we can't use a typical system, but they're not assigning a standard? Or this is the new level, the 10 micrograms per liter? Or milligrams. So they're not establishing a threshold that we're trying to hit? We're just getting rid of the old?
What they've done is defer to the Department of Health, saying that whatever the Department of Health is willing to permit, that says will be that enhanced nitrogen removal. And there may be additional language to be specified, or perhaps I didn't come across when I was looking at the document. So that's definitely something for
Yeah, one
us
of the things
to
that we're
look at.
doing is we've passed it off to our, we're going to be meeting probably Thursday or Friday, pass it off to Summer and Melissa, but we'll also pass it off to our professionals that do all the different legs of all of our environmental work to get all of their input on it. But one of the things that you got to realize we're doing, we'd already started this program. We're taking nitrogen out of the system right now in Wakulla and Magnolia Gardens. By the end of the year, we'll take about right at 9,000 pounds, by the way they calculated it, 9 pounds of nitrogen per year per dwelling. We're taking about right at 9,000 pounds out of the equation just this year. So every year we do that, we're getting ahead of the game. So
We're being punished for the sins of Leon County. That's basically where it is.
No, we're not being punished.
Also
We're being
us, too.
punished because we've got septic tanks out there that we need to change out. Okay,
But we
and
got
that's-
6%, and
We don't have 6%. There's a lot of septic tanks out in the community. It's not just 6%. Septic tanks, from their data, septic tanks are 35% of this, of the contributions to the aquifer. Most of that's coming from the priority focus area, and you can see that it's about 50/50. Now, there might be a little more density up in, Leon County, but it's not, we've got some pretty good density down here now.
but you're asking the poor people of Wakulla County to fund a performance-based tank at somewhere within a 5-year period. That
No.
could today be 10,000.
I think the rule is 20-year period, okay? And so most of these people are gonna have
Unless it
to,
needs repair.
Most of these people are still going to be poor in 20 years. It's not going to change the fact that they're living from day to day and having trouble making their payments. In 20 years, they're going to have trouble.
Well, what's interesting to me is you said they're going to leave it up to the Department of Health. Because, Pat, every time he's made a presentation, he's always big on the natural, because that's why your drain field has to have a certain clearance of groundwater, is that the biodegrades naturally in the soil down to almost undetectable nitrogen levels by the time it gets down, 3 or 4 feet. So it may possibly end up being, if you're in suitable soils or what, I could see that maybe being a focus. If your drain field's in an area where you're a mound system, for example, maybe then have to upgrade or something. But with a perfectly working system that has the groundwater, seasonal groundwater is 6 feet below it, or 10 feet below it, the soil's takes up the nitrogen.
And thankfully, I do have the page with me that discusses the installation for the new septic tanks. It says the system must include at least one of the following nitrogen-reducing enhancements. The first is features allowed pursuant to Department of Health rule, such as in-ground nitrogen-reducing biofilters. Second option is features consistent with and identified in the Department of Health Florida On-Site System Nitrogen Removal Strategy Studies Report. And the third option says other Department of Health approved treatment systems capable of meeting or exceeding the NSF standard 245 nitrogen removal rate. So
it's not a target, it's of 10 milligrams per liter. It's like an 80% nitrogen reduction target, which is how all these systems are rated anyway. Because however much you put in determines how much you want to get out. Everyone doesn't treat to a certain level. Some people may use the bathroom more than others, right, Chuck?
More people in the house.
Have more people, more kids.
One reason we wanted to go ahead and bring this to your attention, because it did just come out last Friday, but DEP is requesting any comments to be presented on this draft by May 18th, which is right before your next public meeting. And so if anyone is interested in attending, DEP is actually having a public meeting on May 17th where they'll be presenting the draft, taking in comments. That meeting is going to be at 10 a.m. at the Woodville Community Center, located at 8000 Old Woodville Road. So that's Woodville.
Not a very big building.
It might not be for this purpose.
It'd be nice if they actually come down to Wakulla County, because most of the people affected are going to be down here.
That's not going to happen.
Are they required to calculate a financial impact like the legislature does with the bill?
If so, I have not seen it yet. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
This is big.
So how many parcels did you say?
Roughly 14,000.
14,000 times 10. Probably that's a minimum.
It's 140,000. That's
Every bit of that's got to come out of the back pockets of the citizens.
That's $1.4 million.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
DEP did include some language in the draft about utilizing state funds to try and assist with this, but I mean, I would ponder to guess it's not going to cover all, of course, of the repairs and modifications and new system installments that have to be made. So,
It's too bad we can't vote on that.
Also, there's new restrictions, which we believe will be okay on, is wastewater treatment plants, us going to our advanced waste treatment. We should be okay there with the level. In fact, we'll be below that. But the, folks like the Winco system as well as River Plantation, they got a wake-up call coming.
It's not 140,000, it's 140 million.
At $10,000 per 14.
Well, there's going to be some. If I had to do my house, which I will eventually, if this passes, then you'll have to have a crane to get
I
it.
think she included vacant parcels and people that are already on sewer and...
That's correct.
Still the average.
Yeah.
Could we not this evening take a vote as to whether we agree with this 5-year plan? We could.
I wouldn't do. I mean, we don't. We almost need a report from us. We need to get all of our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Instead of doing anything one
Well,
way
I
or
think
the
you could probably get 4 of the 5 here to object to what they're talking about.
And I think this isn't going to be effective after the 18th. They still have to go through rulemaking, and there will be an additional comment period.
This is just public comment period.
Yeah. What we're going to do is like I say, that's the reason we're pulling our professional team together to just the pure facts of it. Here's what discrepancies, and then it'll go to that. You're right.
When you do that, just let them know that we disagree with that 100%.
I can't say that right now because we haven't taken official vote, but I got you.
But more importantly, the citizens.
We'll ask about the financial.
Listen, citizens, you need to understand what this impact is, and you need to call our legislators and raise sand with them. and tell them that you don't, I mean, this is gonna cost you $140 million out of your pockets.
Okay. Remember that that 14,000 number includes Wakulla Gardens, which we're already going to sewer between now and then. So you got 3,000 right off the bat that are going to come off of this.
I don't care, Chuck, but still, this is a mandate that is ridiculous.
We still need to know the price tag, we still need to know what the goal is. I spoke to a representative from Hernando County, he's estimating this is gonna cost them $700 million in Hernando County. So this is just one county, this is all 67 that have springs are gonna be dealing with this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's what, we shoot the messenger, is that the way they do? You're responsible, Melissa.
Do we have a motion to approve the
So moved.
consent? Have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we'll go into general business, item number 12.
Yes, this is a request for the board's direction regarding proactive enforcement of temporary signage in the right-of-way. At previous board meetings, the board directed staff to look at the issue of temporary signage located in public right-of-ways. And therefore, staff is recommending that the board give us direction to make some tweaks to our existing sign ordinance that would allow staff, following the removal of signs in the right-of-way, to immediately dispose of those signs in lieu of keeping them for 30 days.
I move option 1.
Now, second. That only pertains to,
Signs in the right of way.
signs in the right-of-way, not on private property.
Right.
We have a motion, and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion from the board?
I had one question, or one statement, defining the right-of-way, and I suggested to Summer that the right-of-way be defined, generally speaking, as that area to the roadside from the power pole, not the easement, which could be behind the power poles, but anything that would be in front of the power poles would be removed.
I mean, it is what it is, but that's a good generic term.
It's a rule of thumb, but I think we can leave that to the enforcement part of it. There may be times where one side or the other side needs to go, and it's within the right-of-way.
One side of the road may not have power poles on it.
True,
Very true.
very true.
Further discussion?
On here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Public
The,
hearing.
I think we need to have a standing agenda item for sign ordinance from now on, by the way.
Yes.
Whole new section on the agenda, right?
The next 4 agenda items are sale of, purchase of
Motion to
properties.
approve all 4.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any citizens? Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Good job, David.
Planning and zoning, item number 17.
Hold on, I'm still recording the vote on the last 4. This is an application for a change of zoning, R-1801. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact they may have received from any interested parties, representatives, or lobbyists concerning this application. Commissioner Stewart.
I received a document that just laid out the plan from the applicant.
No.
None.
I received a document with a previous plan that is no longer, not the plan that I've got this time, so.
I received a document with some sort of plan on it. Still in my box, if you want to look at it.
If there is anyone here who is going to provide any information or speak on this application, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Yes, this request is for a change of zoning from C2 to PUD on a 2.92 acre parcel located at 54B Coastal Highway in Panacea. This request is to allow for the proposed Oaks Motel to be revitalized for the continued use as a motel, but would also allow for RV connection spaces to be included on this parcel.
Motion to approve.
Second, I'd like to change I did receive something on this, so, but it was such a long time ago but I did receive something.
If I did, I certainly don't remember seeing it.
Option one, Randy, is that what you're approving?
Yes, sir.
I second it.
Second.
Yeah.
All right.
For option
Do we
one.
have any citizens? Or Tony Holly.
You don't need to come.
You don't need to do that. We've already, unless you'd like to, we could turn it down yet.
All right. Further discussion from the board?
Are you the applicant?
We appreciate what they're doing down there.
Come on, I'd like to see what it's gonna look like, just,
Yeah, he's getting paid to be here, might as well
Yeah.
make him do something.
I mean, this is the conceptual plan, what we're proposing to do. We're not trying to increase the density, I mean, stack RVs in there right next to each other. Trying to use some innovative approaches.
what do you anticipate the maximum number of RV sites to be?
I think it is, there's a density, Summer, do you have
Capped
one?
out at 29, I
29.
believe it was.
Well, that'll be a
But I
beautiful
don't-
place for
I
it.
think it will, and the applicant, he had to go to Texas this morning, but he's trying to beautify the site as a whole. He doesn't want to just pave it.
It'd be nice to clean that up.
Yeah.
And you're working around the existing trees?
Around the existing trees, we're trying to minimize tree removal. We're actually planting a few more trees. I don't know if you've been by it lately, but he is starting to
Yeah, it's looking good.
work on the actual motel itself.
The sand live oak is going to be hard to grow for a long time, so you want to save as many as you can.
Save as many of them as you can.
He's redoing the motel then.
He is redoing the motel.
How many rooms will there be there?
It'll be the same number that's currently there. I think it's 13. It's the same number. We're not changing the number. I think one of the rooms is being changed into a office and into handicap spots.
What density's urban 2 allow in a coastal zone?
It would allow up to 4 residential units per acre in the coastal high hazard.
It's 10 standard rooms and 2 handicap rooms with a cap on 15.
I think, basically speaking, I think it's very good that we're keeping our RVs on 98 Highway. That's pretty much where they, in my opinion, should be. And it gives people a place to stay with their county.
Correct.
And generally speaking, they don't put their kids in school. So it,
More transient than anything.
Very good. Okay. Further discussion?
I always have the concern about the 180-day residency rule, and so I'm hoping we're monitoring that, so.
We do have that rule within our PUD. So as part of our PUD is the 180-day rule.
Okay. Very good. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Planning and zoning item number 18.
It's an application for change of zoning, R-1802. In accordance with the county code, you all need to disclose any ex parte communications. Commissioner Stewart.
None.
None.
Done.
Talk to staff about it.
Thank you. If there's anyone here who's going to provide any information or speak on this application, please stand up to be sworn.
And if
Including the
there's any
applicant?
chance that you
No?
might be asked a question, go ahead and get sworn in.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
This agenda item requests a change of zoning from RR1 to agriculture on a 10-acre parcel located at 47 St. Mark's Rise Road.
Motion
Motion to approve.
I was trying to beat him to it.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. Second. Mr. Cumbie, I see you want to speak only if
I'll at
needed.
least say what it is.
Okay. Further discussion from the board?
Y'all can thank me for this passing.
Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, sir. All right, that ends our planning and zoning. We have no scheduled commissioner agenda items. County attorney,
Nothing this evening.
county administrator,
Nothing this evening.
citizens to be heard.
Ralph, you might make it to the production.
Mr. Greg Marr Jr.
My daughter's in it too, but I'm not gonna be able to make it. Her aunt's
I had no idea I was going to double dip. I don't hardly ever
Starting to act like
utter a
Chris
word
Russell.
down here. Well, inside joke of late, I sure hope not. Although the other 99.9% of the time, like Chris an awful lot. This septic tank issue is serious, serious business.
You bet.
And it will flat change the face of this county, and there are people that are perfectly content with that. This expense and its mandate, 20 years, I don't care. I believe it was it Commissioner Stewart that says there's nothing going to change about people's income or their economics in 20 years. The same families and same households, with some exceptions, are going to be in ballpark the same figure, and 10 grand is an awful lot of money. Just a little while ago, we had an issue with our septic tank, and I was not aware of the finer points, and I was scared to death at what the expense might be if we had to go pull a permit to do a repair on that thing. I was terrified of that price, because I know every one of those. I may be able to write a check to pay for it, but I know every one of those dollars by its first name, and they were hard-earned. And the idea that anything but a bitter fight about this issue could possibly be represented in any voice here is a little frightening. I don't hear much of it. But there are folks who are, by hook or by crook or by regulation or by mandate or by what's good for the collective, are perfectly content changing the face of rural America. And it's not going to be pleasant. And it's not going to go voluntarily either. Because just like the taxes we pay, people seem to forget that that's money that's taken from the public by force, because for a long time it'll be phone calls and letters and things like that, but eventually the people who show up to take your stuff have guns, and that's force. And this is people's property and people's lives that they've built and where their families have lived for a long, long time, and that same force is at the end of that road as well. That is not something to be considered lightly. And $10,000 is a life-changing amount of money for a lot of the folks in those. Even if you take 3,000 out, the remaining 11,000 parcels that could be impacted in this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That ends our citizens to be heard. Discussion items from Commissioner. Randy, you want to start us off?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Chuck?
Not this evening, no.
Nothing for me?
Nothing for me.
I talked to David. I just want to, I've gotten phone calls about Reverdy Spears Road. We lowered the speed bump. We shouldn't even put the stupid speed bump there. They're flying over it, and it made no difference. And we really, I guess I'm reaching out to law enforcement to try to, whatever y'all can do over there on Reverdy Spears.
Did you see the speed study that we did?
No.
I gave it to Annette. I can get you a copy of it, I think.
Nanette?
Annette,
You got a copy of
I mean,
it?
were they speeding?
Yeah.
Were they typically speeding?
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, what it made out to be, but yeah, there's some speed.
How recently have you done that speed study?
It was probably 3 months ago.
That's you probably, we need to request another one now.
Can we do it again?
Since the thing, and that way we got a.
That'll be a big help for the commissioners that get phone calls. We can say a study was done. And Mike, if you can make sure they do it at the end of school hours, about that hour when school lets out.
We put it there that morning,
Okay.
and we leave it for 7 days straight, and it gives it every time.
Make sure you cover the weekends and.
Good. That'd be great if we can do that again.
Mr. David, when you're building those things, build them at a crossway to the road instead of straight across. It makes a whole lot of difference. You go this way, or your car goes this way. I'm as serious as I can be.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes a big difference in the way you can hit a bump.
Like a V.
One last thing, Chairman, is just something to consider. I'm not going to, just don't argue about it tonight, but we're paved, and it looks great, Tafflinger, and, but now Tafflinger looks like, Raywinkle Road looks like Tafflinger. So I'm proposing that we consider in the future, I'll bring something up, that we might want to consider changing Raywinkle to Tafflinger for that little section, and then you turn left on the Raywinkle.
changing people's
Yes,
addresses, right?
it's three people's addresses that would change. And I know that's not easy to do. We did it on Martin Luther King. A lot of folks had to change there. It was sort of painful for some, but it's something we should consider because right now it's all aligned. And, you know, it really ought to be Tafflinger and then turn left on the road.
Tafflinger all the way to Martin Luther King.
And I do want to say one thing after you're done, Mike.
I'm done.
Several people have asked me or complained, why is the county allowing businesses to build up close to 319 because they know that the state's going to come through and take their right-of-way? Well, the portion in the town plan, which is from East Ivan, right, Summer? South to Gulf Coast, they're not taking the same amount of right-of-way they're taking on the north end. It's going to be basically what's there, maybe a little bit, but not, the county is, the planning department is taking future right-of-way acquisition into account when they're allowing these Zaxby's and El Jalisco's and Banks. They're not purposely letting them build a building knowing the state's going to buy it later. I don't know how many people don't understand that, but they've asked about it, so, motion to adjourn.
We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
All right, Ralph. Chuck, yeah, Chuck will sign. Chuck's gonna cover it. All right, good. Break his hand in. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's at 6:30. Right, he's getting inducted. I won't be able to make it, but Dan will be there.
5:57.
I got something I gotta do at the house. What's more important?
This is my signature stack. Okay, you have to guide me through this one. Everywhere's tab. So I get to,
I hear you. Thank you.
I was going to read it tonight. I was going to get it to That's the best read out here.
Years ago.